All right. First of all, my number five, I have Auburn versus North Carolina. They're playing in Atlanta. And I mean, it's kind of two of college football's most promising young quarterbacks, and Bo Nix and Sam Howell. So looking forward to what they can do. There's always a little extra cachet when it comes to ACC, SEC. We're fed all the ESPN stuff all year about how great the SEC is. So it's one of those things they almost force you into kind of a conference homer of your own. Obviously I don't like to pull for a lot of other ACC teams, but I always love to see the SEC lose, and if it's at the expense of the ACC, I'm all for it. But I don't know if UNC is going to have enough for Mac Brown and them in his second year. But it's going to be a good quarterback duel. I would hope. I hope it's a good game to watch to kind of kick off the season. My number four, I have Texas at LSU. Obviously, this game happened this past year as well. It's Ellinger versus the reigning national champions. There's a lot of intrigue there, regardless of what they lost, and LSU lost a ton. Obviously they lost Joe Burrow, which is a huge loss, Heisman Trophy winner. And man, I hate talking about LSU. I've still got that sting in my heart. It just doesn't make me feel good. But it's interesting to see if the Texas defense will ever improve. I don't know what the issue has been there and why they can't ever seem to get much better with all the recruits they have out of Texas. It's a talent-rich area. But I have Texas LSU, which is a big game. It's going to be at Death Valley, the fake Death Valley, of course. But that should be a fun one to watch. Number three, I have Ohio State at Oregon. If you'll remember to our conversation kind of last year, I picked Oregon to be my number four playoff team. They kind of got close. They made some noise like they could possibly be that contender for a while, but they didn't quite make it. And we all know what happened with Ohio State as well. The Buckeyes, once again, going to be a playoff contender, I would imagine, with the return of quarterback Justin Fields. A lot of talent, both sides of the ball. Ohio State recruits incredibly well. We all know how good they do there. Oregon, obviously, like we talked about, fell short of the playoffs last year. I think they have a playoff caliber defense. We mentioned this earlier in the show. I think we were doing our way too early, top five or something like that. The question is going to be who's going to run the offense with the departure of Justin Herbert. And now that we know that Chase Bryce is not going out to Oregon, which was my guess earlier, after Mark stole South Florida from me. So that's going to be a fun one to watch with two what I consider playoff hopeful teams. Number two, I have USC, the real USC, versus Alabama in Arlington, Texas. The Trojans have showed some flashes over the years. They showed some flashes in 2019, but everyone seems to peg them every year to get back to the days of Bush, the national title contenders. They always think they're going to do this every single year, and every single year they fall short, and I'm not entirely sure why. They recruit very well over in that direction. So I'm hoping maybe they'll add a little more intrigue to this game. Alabama will obviously likely be led by Mac Jones, or it could be Tua's younger brother or newcomer Bryce Young. We'll have to see how that quarterback battle plays out, and that should be kind of fun to watch in the offseason. The last time these teams met, it didn't go real well for the Trojans, so obviously we're hoping for a better matchup to kind of kick off the football season. And number one, no surprise, I have Clemson at Notre Dame. The Tigers are traveling to South Bend for the first time since 1979. Danny Ford led the Tigers to a 16-10 victory there. So they have good luck in Notre Dame. They're 1-0, and hopefully they're about to be 2-0 after this year. They're going to return. Notre Dame will return 5 starters on the offensive line, which is going to be a huge key in this game. And you're protecting quarterback Ian Book, who showed flashes of being a good quarterback as well. It's Clemson's most difficult game on the schedule. It's not necessarily say it's going to be the closest game. There's always that North Carolina or Syracuse that kind of jumps up and surprises us at times. But on paper, Notre Dame is going to be the toughest game on the schedule. So I'm definitely looking forward to the Tigers traveling up there and taking on the Irish.
For me, I like that you put LSU Texas. I didn't put them down, but I think that will be an interesting game to see what they can do now on the road. It was an exciting game kind of at the beginning of the season. It was a road game for LSU this past season.
Right.
We'll see what Texas can do, but I didn't put it because I really feel like it could possibly be not that exciting. And I don't want to kind of stay away from bragging on LSU at all after beating us down. But, and Ohio State, Oregon, that was one that was kind of like honorable mention for me. Mm-hmm. Kind of on the outside. I'm just so skeptical about Pac-12 teams. And but I think that's going to be a good one too. USC, Alabama, I did like that one. I think that one's going to be in Jerry's World and in Arlington, Texas there. So I would like to see USC come back to some sort of prominence. I mean, really, it would be nice to have some teams on the West Coast kind of help develop the college football atmosphere. I mean, a lot of people are starting to talk about, well, it's just a bunch of Southern teams. Nobody's interested on the West Coast because it's nothing but Alabama, Clemson, and the SEC. And I don't want it to be that way. I want to see teams from all over the country play. And I don't want to always have to worry about or argue or debate over how many Southern teams we get in or how many SEC teams we get in. I'd like for it to be eventually, hey, you're going to have to automatically put in a Pac-12 team or somebody else that maybe is not always the runner-up for the SEC. But I like that list. I got a couple more than what you have, and there's one that I'm going to mention a little bit later after we get Mark's 5 games, because there's one that I'm really shocked that you didn't have on here. But Mark, can you tell us if you have any thoughts on what Alan just said, and also tell us what your top 5 most anticipated games are for the 2020 season?
Yeah, Alan's list is cute. But let's get a more accurate list. Right? If we can do that here, I think, Alan, if you're okay with that. Yeah, I'm just picking.
No, sure. Go for it.
I've got a lot of the same games that Alan has on his, but I've got a couple of ones that are different, right? I really lean heavy into the early season games for the most part, and maybe that's because I want all the great games to be early, and then I can pick a new list of 5 later. But there's one game that I'm intrigued by, and it's Michigan at Washington, which is September 5th. That's really the number 5 game on my list. I think those are 2 teams. Obviously, Washington has got a new coach coming in this year. Michigan at some point has to have that dream season, right, to kind of justify Harbaugh being there. That game is September 5th, so you're getting that one right out of the box. And I think that's a pretty big and interesting matchup between 2 schools that really need to have really good seasons and really good wins. Number 4 on my list, kind of like Alan, is Texas at LSU. Hey, man, I'll rag on LSU all day long. They played a great game. Doesn't mean I have to like them. Doesn't mean I'll be pulling for them on September 12th when they host Texas. LSU has 16 guys going to the NFL Combine. They're going to take a significant step backwards next year. Sam Ehlinger didn't really deliver last year on some of the promises he made the year before. This is a very key year for Texas and their coaching staff. It would not surprise me if Texas found a way to beat LSU on September 12th early in the season. I'm a huge believer in that LSU was a great team last year. Is this program built to last? We may know a lot more about them on September 12th. Number 3 on my list, Ohio State at Oregon. Don't know if this will be the best game in the world, but after the way the Ohio State fans behaved after the Clemson loss in the Fiesta Bowl this year, aren't you looking forward to watching them play and pulling against them? I mean, wouldn't it be great for Ohio State to drop an early season game to Oregon? I think that would all make us very happy. So I'll be keeping my eye on that one. I don't think you had any SEC games included, Alan. I did include one for mine, but it's not the usual one. It's the Halloween matchup between Florida and Georgia. I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup in the SEC East this year. There's a lot of pressure on Kirby Smart, losing their quarterback, losing a lot of offensive talent again. Georgia has to win the SEC East and really needs to win the SEC next year, or those Georgia faithful are going to start getting a little bit irritated with Kirby. I think it comes down to that game with Florida, who's going to be improved this season coming up on October 31st. And then my number 1 game, Alan did get this one right. It's Clemson Notre Dame. When this game was announced, I think 5 or 6 seasons ago, literally turned to my wife right there and I said, hey, 2020, I'm going to that football game. I'm looking forward to November 7th, going to South Bend and checking out the Clemson Tigers playing on Notre Dame this year. I've had this one circled for a long time. I think it'll be a great matchup. I'm a little bit older than you guys. I know Notre Dame was great in your lifetime, but man, for a good significant portion of my childhood and teenage years, Notre Dame was the best team in college football. I haven't forgotten about that, and that's always kind of been a bucket list place for me to want to go see a game. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, that game is a big-time game, a big circle for me, too. I want to go to that game, and I want to take my father-in-law, but we kind of looked into it already. And it's going to be a hefty price there. But Alan knows that I am no stranger to paying hefty prices for Clemson tickets, even when I don't have to.
Another story for another day. I told you that's our teaser, okay? Because you're going to want to be online live with us when we tell this story.
Maybe we'll do it when we're on location one day. That'll be a good on location story. But the flight there is about. Travelocity's got $450 right now a person, and then the ticket right now, upper deck, $450 a person. So you're looking at 900 right there off the top. Find yourself a hotel, and you're up in the you got a little comma in the cost there. So it's going to be a little bit of savings plan. You're going to have to get on the Dave Ramsey budget and maybe eat beans and rice to make it to that game. But you got time. I mean, it's only February, so you definitely have time to make it. So don't do like I do, though, and wait till the Friday before and then expect to get the same price, because it ain't going to happen. I'll just let you know that right now, especially for national championship games. But for me, Clemson versus Notre Dame's my number one. I got to say that. I mean, I'm just going to go out and say this. If I can figure out a way to save up, I am going to, and I'm going to take my father-in-law. We'll figure it out. But Wisconsin versus Notre Dame, that's the one, Alan, that I was going to tell you about, because Wisconsin-Notre Dame is going to be played at Lambeau Field on October 3rd. I don't know if you realize this, but you're a big Packers fan, so I wanted to give you a little shout out there and put Wisconsin Notre Dame. I think, I love watching teams play in different stadiums than their traditional place. I actually love when I don't know if it's sometimes Rutgers or some teams in the Big Ten play in Yankee Stadium. I always love that. So I want to see teams play in some different venues just to kind of spice it up. But again, like I said earlier, Alabama, USC, Mark, you talk about your childhood. Well, my childhood, I still remember what's a lot of people say is the greatest national championship of all, which was Vince Young versus Reggie Bush in Texas USC. And I remember that game, and I remember staying up late and watching that and just seeing that thriller. And I want to see the Trojans get back to it and be a prominent team in college football. So I'm looking forward to USC and what they can do against Alabama. I know it's going to be tough, but everybody is blank slate. Dabo Swinney says it, blank slate every single year. You got to re-earn your position, no starters. You got to start over from the beginning and earn your starting spot, and then go play the games, right? But for me, I don't think anybody mentioned this. I've got LSU versus Florida. This was one that I felt like was a pretty exciting game until later on in the fourth quarter. LSU kind of took it away. Florida started throwing some interceptions, but they're going to go back to Gainesville and play against each other. And LSU is going to have a road game win in this situation this year. And I look for the Swamp to be packed as always and to be loud and ready, because they want to get some revenge on that loss that they had last year. I mean, it was kind of neck and neck for the majority of the game, like I said, until late. And so I want to see what Florida can do. Again, I'd like to see Florida get back to being successful and it not always being Georgia as the one that finishes on top. And then another one, I don't know if anybody said, but Ohio State, Penn State for me. I'm a big fan of the whiteout. Just like wearing all orange, Alan gets on to me. You cannot go to a Clemson game unless you're wearing orange. You're not allowed in the stadium. The gates will close on you in your face if you're not wearing orange. And so I take that to heart, and I wear orange every time I go to a game. But also, Penn State fans are the same way about white. I mean, They wear white, and man, do they wear white. I mean, I don't think anybody wears a different color than white. And it is really cool to watch. The Nittany Lions are always a team that can play the Buckeyes close. And, who knows? Maybe Oregon gets a win, and then maybe Penn State gets a win, and Ohio State's just going to sit there and watch Clemson on TV again. That would be great for me.
I love that. Put that out into the world. I love that.
But that's our top 5 games to look forward to in 2020. Let us know what you think. Maybe we're off base. Maybe we completely lost our minds here.
Unlikely.
Maybe Mark doesn't know anything. Maybe he's just kind of got amnesia because he's now a basketball fan. Maybe Alan's all stuck in baseball world and doesn't know what football is all about anymore. Let us know in the comments what you think, if we're crazy.